Yes, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jack Farmer, and this is the Wrestling Chatter, and we have a very special episode for you this time around. Our next guest has put together the biggest Canadian contest for the second year in a row, and before joining him there in Orlando, Florida, I want you all to take a quick look at this.
Wrestling Academy 2023, this is QT Marshall, and I am standing on one of the very rings here at the Nightmare Factory that 3 winners will have the opportunity to train in for 12 weeks alongside myself, the other coaches, Daddy S, AEW star and WWE Hall of Famer Billy Gunn, and the winner of the 2023 WWE Royal Rumble, the man that will headline WrestleMania, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes. Now, in addition to the 12-week training, of course, the cash prize of $10,000 will go in your pocket as well. But it seems like every time I make one of these videos, I always like to up the ante. And this one is no different. But this one will also help me achieve a personal goal. I've never wrestled in Montreal, Canada, and after a lot of talks, Jacques Rougeau and myself, you see, we've made a deal. Now for the semifinalists, while you won't make it to the finals, there is a consolation prize. So I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is one of you will be chosen to step in the ring at the finals to go one-on-one with QT Marshall. And it's funny I said good news because the bad news is the exact same thing. You're going to step in the ring with QT Marshall. There's only one way for me to truly see if you have what it takes. And that's for you to go one-on-one with the former God's gift and beat me in the middle of the ring. So semifinalists, get ready. Finalists, get ready. I am excited to come back to Montreal. I am literally chomping at the bit, standing in the ring, just waiting. So Wrestling Academy 2023, while last year was incredible, I already feel that this year is going to be astronomical.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm being joined now by Jacques Rougeau, also known as the Mountie, but today known as the man who's putting this contest together. Jacques, one, great to chat with you, but two, tell us about this contest you have.
Thank you, Jack. You know, this is really much appreciated, you guys having me on your podcast. And I'm sure that all the participants in Wrestling Academy will be happy to see that they were seen in Los Angeles is in the house, baby.
Yes, City of Stars. Yes.
And, it's amazing. It's what a great 2 years I've been having now. Wrestling has always been my passion all my life. And now to be able to give back to the Canadian community of wrestling, to have all these independent wrestlers from Nova Scotia to Vancouver, from East Coast to West Coast that wrestle in the underground wrestling, in the small leagues, in the little leagues, and in the churches and the basements. And I went to, and last year we started this tournament, and my girlfriend and I, and we had this idea that came up, Jack, of a competition in Quebec that was called Star Academy, which was like they had this competition for many years about singers, and the singers would actually be chosen and eliminated by people and votes and stuff like that, and the winner would end up singing at the Bell Center with Celine Dion. That would be their prize. And I start thinking to myself, wow, wouldn't that be awesome? To do something with wrestling like that. And so we put it together. So I started. It was so funny because last year, Jack, I started sending some invitations across the country, and we had like 42 that applied, but 21 was from Quebec, and like 21 from the whole rest of Canada. It's almost like because of the haters and the non-believers and people that were afraid that they're saying, how can the Jacques Rougeau give $20,000 of bonus? How can that happen? And then they were saying Jacques Rougeau saying that he's going to be giving 3 months at the Nightmare Factory with QT Marshall. That was, so there was a lot of negative in there. And then, but everything happened, and it was so amazing. At the Club Soda in Montreal live, we had the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and the finals. And on the final show in September last year, QT Marshall appeared on a huge giant screen from Atlanta, Georgia, from his house. And he was the one choosing the last 4 winners of $5,000 that would go spend some time with him in 3 months. And everything happened on YouTube. It's all there. People could go and see it. So that gave me a lot of credibility this year. So even as far as the sponsors goes, because a lot of people came in and they said, wow, this is really happening. So this year, when we send the inscriptions out across Canada, I had only like 11 in Quebec, and I had something like 70 inscriptions from Canada, 70 of them.
Yeah.
And you should see the talent that send their 30-second video, because now not only that, all the 4 winners, Jeremy Prophet, Matt Black, and Chris Dillon, and Jessica Black, the 4 winners, the woman and 3 men last year, they got their $5,000 and they spent the 3 months. They appeared actually on AEW taping in Toronto. The first time AEW went to Toronto this year in Canada, first time in Canada, they were booked on the first match of the first show of Dynamite and Rampage. And that was part of the deal also. So everybody saw that. So now all the competitors across Canada are saying, hey, this is real, man. This is happening. What a great opportunity. And you talk about opportunities, like this year, it's like $10,000. It's like $10,000 for the winners instead of $5,000. And the other thing is, something amazing happened, is Cody Rhodes is one of the teachers now. And it's like, so now when you go to the Nightmare Factory for 3 months, you have Billy Gunn in the ring there. I spent a week last fall with my winners there in Atlanta. I went down to see how it was going. And I couldn't believe that Billy Gunn was sweating blood and tears in there with Cody Rhodes and QT Marshall, with all the new students and my 4 winners. And I couldn't believe it was like 5 days a week they were in there training these guys. And I'm looking at, now you got 2 guys that from AEW, you got 1 guy from WWE in there. And I'm saying, what a great opportunity for Canadian wrestlers to have a stepping stone or a chance to be seen by the 2 biggest leagues in the world. So this competition is going just absolutely wild this year, Jack.
Are these people who are sending in their tapes, are they, you said they're currently wrestling, they're in the sort of the indies, or are they people who said, I've never done this before, give me a shot? What kind of tapes are you getting?
No. It was clear to everybody, like, hey, you should have at least, a couple of years of experience. And we had a couple of beginners that sent in, but unfortunately that didn't work out, because we wanted to have a first, I wanted to represent Canada also. It was going both ways there. It was like, not only that I wanted to send the greatest talent in Canada, but I wanted one of the Canadian wrestlers to have a chance to go to AEW or to go to WWE. And, so it was a win-win situation for both. If you go on wrestling-academie.ca, or if you write it down there, lutteacademie.ca, the 2 websites that we have, you just go and you'll see amazing things on this website, Jack. You would die just to go see it. I'm telling you the truth, because on this website, not only you have all the girls that are competing and all the guys that are competing, that you click on their videos and you'll see a 30-second promo of each, half in the ring and half on the mic, to see, they had to impress me. And QT, because me and QT, we both chose these videos together in Atlanta last fall for this year's edition. So the other things that you will see that you won't believe is, right on top of that, you have all the old timers like me that put in a good word. Like, you have some guys that are encouraging all the Canadian talent. I got amazing. I got Tonga. I got Ricky Steamboat. I got Bushwhackers. I got Undertaker. I got Bret Hart. I got Ric Flair. I got them. Everybody that I did business with, and they all sent a video. And by the way, I have a sad thought. I got to give it to you, because you'll even find Lanny Poffo on there, who sent me a nice video last year. And God bless all the fans, and my condolences to all the fans. I loved Lanny. But anyway, all this to say that you'll see all this on my website, that this has become worldwide in wrestling, that people are following this. And another thing that happened to them too, I'm so excited. I feel like I'm drooling. But anyway, it's like, I have this guy, Zashman, from Australia, who was following the competition last year. And he said, Jacques, would you mind doing my podcast? And I said, no, that would be awesome. So I did a podcast in Australia. Actually, the first continent and the first country that I went to wrestle for the WWF in 1986 was in Australia with my brother Raymond. And I did a podcast. And this guy, Zashman, he owns a toy company. And he made 4 dolls, like wrestling figurines, of my 4 winners last year.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a dream for a lot of people to get the action figure, the doll.
Me and Jimmy Hart, we used to land in every country and every town around the world, Tokyo, London. And while all the guys were going to look to find some bars and looking for after the show, me and Jimmy would go and look for Toys R Us to go see if they had our dolls in there. You know, it was like amazing. But anyway, this contest is just amazing. I'm so happy.
So if people they're new to it and they're hearing this and they're like, this sounds interesting to me, I'm going to go to wrestling-academy.ca. How does the contest and the show work? Is it with like a reality show where one person gets eliminated each week? Is it based on how technical they are in the ring? What are you guys looking for, and what can I expect if I tune in?
So I put these matches together last year. I chose the talent. I was all by myself last year. QT Marshall just came in for the main event there to choose the last 4 out of 8. But I put all that together by myself with the fans that were able to call in and vote for themselves to see who they wanted to keep and who they wanted to let go. And I made a deal with all the wrestlers. I said, listen, guys, I said, I'm gonna help you put your match together if you want. I want to supervise it, just because we're going to flip a coin here, heads or tails, to see who's doing the job and who's going over. Like, you know, who's winning the match and who's losing. It's going to be out of the coin. And I said, that's not important in this competition. What's important is the charisma, is how you look in the ring, how you talk on the microphone, how you dress, your dress code, how you represent wrestling. And I said, people are going to call in to vote. So what we did last year is we had a lot of people coming in and voting. You could actually pay $1 and then you could go ahead and vote. But what happened there is during the competition last year, because it's a live and learn experience for us, it was new. I stopped that because I had some of the parents of the kids that were spending $1,000 just to vote for their kids. So I said, no, that's not fair. You know, so what we did is we had 4 judges by the ring. So what we do is we'd watch the match, and the 4 judges around the ring would judge on the ability in the ring and everything else, like I said before, all the characteristics that it takes to become a wrestler, you know, what it takes. And then at the finals, QT was deciding. But this year, when QT finished last year, actually in the fall, the next morning, it was such a hype in Quebec and in Canada from all the wrestlers. So the next morning I called QT because I was so flattered and excited that he wanted to work with me, you know, with the Nightmare Factory and what he gave us, the 3 months and everything. So I wanted this to happen again. So I called him the next morning after the end of the show. And I said, QT, I said, did you like the show? Did you like the context and everything? And how? He says, I loved it. But he says, next year, Jacques, he says, you're not the one choosing the videos. You're not the one choosing the quarterfinals. You're not the one tuning the semifinals. He says, I want to be in on everything of it. So I couldn't believe it. Like QT it was like we became his pet project. Like, you know, it was like, hey, this guy really loves what we're doing. So that's what happened. I stopped in Atlanta when winners were there in September, and then we took all the videos. We chose them together. As a matter of fact, it was so funny because I didn't see eye to eye with him in a few videos. Like, you know, I looked at this guy. He looked so good. You know, he looked really good. I thought he had the total package, but he was dressed with a pair of jeans. And then QT says, nope, we're not taking him. He has no respect for the gear. And I looked at QT.
Oh, wow.
And I looked at QT and said, holy shit. I said, yeah, but he's good. He said, no. He said, you have to have respect for the business. I got to know the man, QT Marshall, in a different angle there, you know. And the funniest thing is I didn't know the guy before I started this competition. I never knew the guy. So all this to say that this competition this year, we're going to have 3 commentaries around the ring. You'll be able to see it on YouTube again. It'll be on our channel when you go check it out. But QT, I gave him the whole reins. Like, he's going to be the only judge. So after each match, the 2 contestants or the 4 contestants or the 6 contestants, they go in the ring, 3 against 3, 2 against 2, 1 against 1, and then they stay in line, and then QT chooses. If there's 6, he chooses 3. If there's 4, he chooses 2. And they're all in line. And last year was so amazing because at the finals, because when we were choosing, you wouldn't believe it, but some of the talent started crying. Like, you know, when they were eliminated, like, you know, I couldn't believe it. You know, I was saying, like, wow, this is good stuff. Like, you know, this is really good.
It's really an emotional journey going through something like that. And so it sounds like if I want to watch, then the best way for me to follow along is to follow the YouTube channel. What's the YouTube channel? Or can I find it at www.wrestling-academy.ca?
You know, I'm like a dinosaur. It's my girlfriend that does all the technology there. So what you'd have to do is go on my website. Go on wrestling-academy.ca, or put it on the bottom when you have a chance there so people could see it, and put it in French also. So if it doesn't work on one, you could sometimes with internet, you get one. So it's lutteacademie.ca. So it's LUTTE, Academy is ACADEMIE. wrestling-academie.ca. And go, so you have both versions, and then you could just go and then you'll see last year's show. So you can even go check out last year's competition. It was really fun. But you'll see that two things I got to tell you about that, Jack, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I'm much better in the ring than a producer, so you'll see a lot of mistakes, in the production.
Right.
You'll see, it's horrible. No, but I mean,
No,
it's
it's
like
fine.
but
You
it's
learn,
like
you learn on the job. That's part of it.
exactly. But it was so exciting that it didn't matter because it was the content that was so magnificent, not what was everything around it. But this year will be better. And there was another thing too that I forgot I wanted to say that gets a lot better.
Well, it's something that we talk about the show. It sounds fascinating. I'm going to be checking it out, but the prizes are incredible. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like 10,000 each for the prizes and 3 months the Nightmare Factory. And you already said this, but I want to reiterate the thing about the Nightmare Factory is you got QT Marshall, who's in AEW. You've got Cody Rhodes, who's making a little bit of noise over in WWE if you're watching, but also Billy Gunn, who I kind of feel like is a little bit of both because he's obviously in AEW right now, but I mean, come on, I'm sure he's got a few phone numbers over at WWE as well. I mean, something about pro wrestling, it's so hard is getting that foot in the door. You get the money, you get the training, but I almost think that foot in the door is one of the biggest things.
There's two things that since I was young, that always made my father used to tell me this because we're 4 generations of wrestlers. And my dad used to tell me there's 2 things that make it happen in wrestling is knowing the right people and being at the right place at the right time. And I think that this competition has both. So you know the right people and you're at the right place at the right time. Because wrestling is just booming everywhere. And you're thinking, and I'm thinking about, I couldn't help but to think when I saw Cutie send me this beautiful video that we saw at the beginning there, and I'm seeing Cody Rhodes in the back there.
Mm-hmm.
He won the Royal Rumble, and now he's going to WrestleMania for the main event. I think he's going to be.
He's doing okay.
What a guy to be. And it's funny because one of my winners, Jeremy Prophet. It's so funny because he was one of my Quebec winners last year. There was one from Ontario, one from Nova Scotia, and there was 2 from Quebec, a girl and a man. And it just so happened there was boyfriend and girlfriend together. Mm-hmm. But Jeremy Prophet is a great athlete. Like he's been wrestling for 17 years. But he told me that since he's been back from the Nightmare Factory since September, he's chatting every week with Cody Rhodes. Awesome. He's talking so it's like he made a great contact, and I remember being at the pro shop at the Nightmare Factory last fall, my girlfriend and I, when we were there for a week, and we went to choose for the contestants for this year, because Billy Gunn's wife works at the milkshake shop there, she does the milkshakes and stuff. So I'm sitting there to get my milkshake, and she goes and she looks at all the contestants that were in the ring at the school, at Cutie School, and she says, that guy Matt Black there, we gotta take him for AEW. We gotta take him. I'm looking at my girlfriend like, wow, wouldn't this be awesome? If one of my winners get a breakthrough. Unfortunately, the 4, as of yet, they wrestled only one time in Toronto, but they didn't get the breakthrough. But you know what? Maybe it'll happen this year. Who knows?
But that's part of the game. You got to keep going. And it's something that you've been doing for a while. I know this contest is new, but training isn't something that's new to you. You've been actually training pro wrestlers for a while now, right?
Yeah, that's right, baby. I started I started wrestling in 1977 for Bret Hart's father, Stu Hart, in the dungeon there in Calgary for Stampede Wrestling. And Lord knows, I think I must have wrestled like 45 years. I just stopped like 3 years ago before COVID. And I had my own wrestling territory for 20 years with my 3 sons. My 3 sons wrestled with me. Mm-hmm. My great uncle wrestled, my uncle Johnny, my dad. So we were 4 generations. So wrestling I remember when I was young, I was at home in a little town 20 miles northeast of Montreal. And the newspaper guy used to, because my father and my uncle owned the business in Quebec. So the main event would be on a Monday night. It would be religious. On Monday night, it was Monday Night Wrestling at the Paul Sauvé Arena in Montreal. And it was like on Sunday nights, my father, who was usually the main eventer, he'd received his opponent like the night before, and the newspaper guy from Montreal would come to my house and come take a picture, like in boxing, or where they do face to face there and all that. And I remember, like 4 or 5 years old, I remember seeing Abdullah the Butcher and Joe LeDuc and all these guys come to my house and with scars coming down their heads, and really impressive people. When you're 5, 6 years old, you see those monsters, and
Right.
to later on work with them, that was so funny. But anyway, I've been around the business all my life.
Yeah, obviously, I think you're probably most well known for, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, as being the Mountie. And the Mountie is a character that you've probably heard this. Just to me, is one of the probably the most recognizable 90s wrestling characters out there. In fact, between us, really kind of the first character that was a bad guy that I liked. I liked the shock stick.
Really?
I liked the look. But I want to ask you, really, when you look at how long the Mountie was, it was kind of a short period of time, but it had such staying power. People love that character so much, or hate that character so much, depending on what side of the fence you're looking at it from.
Mostly hated.
What do you think made the Mountie stand out so much amongst so many colorful wrestlers at the time?
Wow, that's a great question. And you know what? There's so many things I'd like to say when you say about the Mountie. I think of the first time I did the first vignette there when I was on a horse. And I don't know if you remember that first vignette where I'm in Quebec, I'm on my horse in a park, and there's this car that comes beside me, and there's 2 Americans that are lost, and they want to go back to the States. And I'm sitting on my horse like this, and then this guy's with his girlfriend, so he pulls his window down beside me, and he says, excuse me, officer. And I look down from my horse, and I look down at him, and I said, I'm not an officer, I'm the Mountie. So the guy looks at me in his car like he's all afraid, and his girlfriend's like this. And then he looks at his girlfriend and he says, boy, I got a wacko here. So then he turns back up to me and he says, excuse me, Mr. Mountie, can you tell me how we get back to the U.S.? We're lost. And then slowly got off of my horse with a cocky face, and I told him to follow me to get out of his car. And when I told him to get out of the car with my ugly face, he looked at his girlfriend like, should I? And she says, come on, chicken, get out. So then he gets out of the car and he follows me, and I bring him in front of my horse. And I take the jaw of my horse like this, the face of my horse, and I put it up like this. And I tell the guy, I said, you see this part of my horse? It always points to Canada. I said, come here. And then I went in the back of my horse, and I lifted the tail up of the horse, and you could see the real donut there. And the camera was right in. I said, you see this part of my horse? It always points to the USA. And the guy just looked at me afraid, jumped in his car, and he spinned his wheels, and he took off. And from that day on, the Mountie, there's 2 things that happen. A lot of people love to hate the Mountie, but a lot of the real Mounties hated me, and so I did this thing for about a year. It only lasted like a year and a half. And the real Mounties, they put a lawsuit, an injunction against the WWE, WWF or WWE at the time.
Yeah.
And they banned me from Canadian TV. I wasn't allowed to be seen, my character, on TV, because I was giving a bad image to the Canadian Mounties. And so that was good and that was bad. I mean, that was good because I get a lot of heat, but that was bad because all the TV tapings that were done around the world, they were doing on 2 days on every month. So Vince couldn't put me on the tapes anymore. It was too much trouble to put. So that was the bad thing, why it lasted so shortly. But what great moments, you talk about the Big Boss Man, the jailhouse match, what great matches.
I was a big fan of the shockproof rubber vest myself, but
with Rowdy Piper.
Yeah, but was there something but with this lawsuit and everything, though, obviously it's a bummer, but were you a little proud? I mean, you were ruffling feathers. Isn't that what the bad guy's supposed to do? Is it a part of you that was bummed out, but a little bit like, I got something really good here?
You know what? I had so many compliments as the Mountie, from Bret Hart, who didn't want to drop the title to Piper, so they used me for an intermediate. So they took me to use that position to do it. I was only champion for like 48 hours, the Intercontinental Champion. And every time I go to Comic-Con for 35 years now, they always have me with the belt, and they always have me as the greatest Intercontinental. So I really marked them with that. And then another time too, a time there where Randy Macho Man Savage had a fight with Vince, and he just left the building. And Vince was stuck. He needed a baby face. And Vince, he called me in the room, and he called Sid Vicious in the room, and Sid Vicious was a big heel. He was the top heel then. And so Vince said, listen, he said, Sid, he says, I'm in a position. I need to have a baby face with you tonight. And Sid started looking at him like laughing, a baby face. I'm the hottest heel around, you know. And then Vince said, well, don't worry. He says, we'll change that tonight, you know. And then they send me into the ring. I cut a promo for about 30 seconds. I said that there's not one man in the United States that could beat me. And as a matter of fact, I'm looking at the fans right here. There's not one man that could step in the ring. And even more than that, I just left the dressing room with a bunch of hillbillies. There's not one man in there that could beat my butt either. And then Sid Vicious came out of the curtain. He was the biggest babyface that he ever imagined he would be. So for using me to do that position, that gave me a lot of self-confidence in my character.
Absolutely. And someone you work with a lot is Jimmy Hart. And I'm a big fan of Jimmy Hart. I actually got the chance to talk to him in an interview a while back, and just a delight to talk to. In fact, speaking of the wearing jeans thing, one thing he told me was that he was given the advice that if you dress like the fans, soon you'll be sitting with the fans. And that always resonates with me. But tell me a bit about Jimmy Hart from your perspective.
I got so many things, but I'm going to shorten it real fast. But I'm going to tell you a few important things about Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart was the first one who told me that same thing to you. So every time I've gone in Comic-Cons over the years and everything, I always had my Mountie suit on, my hat, my glasses. So when a lot of the guys were sitting in sweatsuits and sweatpants and all those around in their chairs with their names written in front of them, the people that were in front of their lines, they didn't have to see my name where I was. They could look at a half a mile away and they say, hey, look, the Mountie's over there, the Mountie's over there. You know, and that was Jimmy's doing. Jimmy Hart created two of the greatest songs. We don't like heavy metal. We don't like rock and roll. All we like to listen to is Barry Manilow. Hey, we're all so American. Good. That was Jimmy Hart, total. Yes. And then I'm handsome, I'm brave, I'm strong. I'm the Mountie. That was Jimmy Hart again. And, you know, let me tell you something about Jimmy Hart. It's going to shorten really something that I call him the GOAT. Every time I go now somewhere, I call him the GOAT. Jimmy Hart was the best wrestling manager of all times. And people are going to say, oh, of course, Jacques, you're going to say that. He was your manager. But no, let's step that aside. Let's put that aside. Jimmy Hart was the best wrestling manager of all time because he was the only one that would not come in front of an interview and say, let me tell you something. I'm the brain. I got this. I'm smart. Jimmy would always give the recognition to, let me tell you something about my man. Let me tell you something about my man. He never took credit for nothing. And it's amazing because every time I go in Comic-Cons, he's got the longest line ever. People are always in front of him in line. They want to see him and they love him. And he never took credit for nothing. He's a GOAT. He's the best thing that ever happened to the fabulous Rougeau brothers and to the Mountie.
Well, that's a great point that you bring up about him. And the thing about him with that music too, I want to circle back on that because he was a big music guy. Obviously, we won't get into the history of Jimmy Hart, but he's a big music guy, did a lot of music for WWE. You've done some music as well, though. In fact, I think we have a picture here from is this the Canada's Masked Singer?
Yeah.
Now, Jacques, you got to walk me through this. Are you a lobster?
Yeah, I'm a lobster, and you know, the homard, and that was a French version of it, and it was amazing because they called me. I was so humbled to it, the fact that they wanted me to be hiding behind this mask, and you know, they were drawing like, you know, one person out of four in our country was seeing this show. It's like the exposure was absolutely amazing, and we started 20 characters like that. And I lasted all the way to number 8. So there was like 12 that were eliminated. I had a chance to sing Old Town Road. I sang Country Road, Take Me Home. I sang Jailhouse Rock. I sang Helen. I sang. I did a bunch of songs, and it was funny because we have these judges. I don't know if it's like that in the States, but we have these judges that try to guess who you are after every time you sing. And after the first week, this comedian starts saying, that's Jacques Rougeau. And I was going like, and I was, excuse my expression, I was shitting in my costume, going like, oh no, I don't want to be eliminated. Like, you know, no. And I kept laughing because one would say I was a hockey player, the other one would say I was this, and I kept acting on whatever it was. If it was a hockey player, I was acting like I'm a slap shot. You know, if it was a football player, I'd ask my foot. And when he said that's Jacques Rougeau, the wrestler, I was going like this, like.
Yeah.
Because as you know,
Yeah.
you may not know it here in the States that much, but in Canada, everybody knows that I'm the only Canadian to ever pin Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
You know? So when I go like this, people knew exactly. Then that became funny because, and what was good about that show, it was like every week, they wouldn't just say that Jacques Rougeau. They would say, well, let me tell you something. That's Jacques Rougeau because he's the greatest intercontinental champion ever existed. He's the fourth generation Rougeau family. Everything he did in the schools against bullying for 20 years. And he kept putting me over like that every week, every week, every week. And I was loving every minute of it. I was saying, wow, what good credibility for me, like, you know?
Yeah. Well,
And,
I definitely want to ask you about Hogan, but before we leave The Masked Singer, you can't come on here and tell me you sang these songs and not give us a little sample. Let me hear a little Jailhouse Rock.
oh my God, stop it. No, I can't give you that. I'd have to have my lyrics first. Help me out there. Help me out with Jailhouse Rock. Help me out. How does it start?
Let's do Country Roads instead.
One for the month. No, that wasn't.
Two for the show. Three to get
No,
ready.
that wasn't Jailhouse Rock. That wasn't Jailhouse Rock. Nah. You see, you know what was funny about this? I got to tell you. This show was so stressful. People have no idea. I'm a performer. I'm a guy who liked to sing. I got a pretty good voice when I sing, you know, karaoke and stuff.
Yeah.
But when you go 3 days in the week ahead of time and you got to dance with like 10 girl dancers around you and not trip over them, and then you got to worry about you're out of your element. You know, I'm not a singer. You know, I'm a performer, yes, but not a singer. And under this mask that was claustrophobic, like, you know, this mask, you have no idea. It's like it's on your face like this, and you're like, and you're missing air and stuff, and you're walking, and you could barely see through the net. Like, you know, when you're walking, it's completely different. And we have to practice the steps, practice the singing. I went to record first in the studio. They record the song. I have all the lyrics with me on a piece of paper. I record all the lyrics. So under your mask, you don't sing really. You just they put the song and you just have to dance. But it's really me singing, but it's recorded. Right. And I'm sure they did a few touch-ups on my voice too, you know, in the studio. But what an experience! All this together. And Old Town Road, what a great song to do, man. I walked out as the sheriff. You know, that was really good. If you go see on my Facebook now, everybody, if you want to see all these songs, I'm a public Facebook. So if you go see Jacques Rougeau's Facebook, if ever you have a chance to include there the picture of me and my girlfriend on the Facebook, people could go see it. You'll see my Facebook face. You could go see everything I'm talking to you about, from my singing, from my wrestling, from everything, from old pictures I put from the old days. I'm very active on Facebook. And you could see my songs that I sang on The Masked Singer.
So everyone's definitely got to check that out. I got a few more for you. I know I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I do want to ask.
Am I boring? Am I boring?
No, you're great. This is great. I want to talk about Hulk Hogan, though. I want to talk to you about the night you pinned Hulk Hogan. We know the story. You pinned him, but I want to know. Tell me a little bit about what it was like in the locker room and before and after this match, and like what led up to that, and what was that like? Because once you know, that's got to be a huge thing, knowing you're going to get to do that, right? Like, tell me about that, the before in the locker room and the after in the locker room.
Where do I start? I go to WCW. I have a fight with Vince. That was the end with Vince. Go to WCW, and Eric Bischoff is there, and I don't get along at all with Eric Bischoff. We don't see eye to eye at all. But I'm not the only one. You know, and anyway, all this to say,
he's got a strong personality.
Yeah. And anyway, all this to say that I don't know if you had a little something with Hulk too about a power trip there or something, but anyway, that came in to work for me in my favor. But all this to say, I opened the doors for WCW with my lawyer, Cookie Lazarus in Montreal. I got the Molson Center for them. I got the TV deal for them. I got the sponsors for them. I opened the only show WCW came to do in Montreal was my show. So I produced that show with them. So the only thing that I asked is to be main event against Hulk. It was my dream to work against Hulk.
Yeah.
A lot of things were happening in that time. I got to say that I just finished a huge, I don't want to get into it. You could always go on Dark Side of the Ring, but I was finishing up a huge incident with the British Bulldogs where there's a lot of bullying and intimidation, and I hold my end on that, and that influenced a lot of people because they were huge bullies in the WWF, huge, and and a lot of people were afraid of them. And when I stood up to them and I did what I did, then it's like I gained a lot of respect from a lot of people. So that played in also. The other thing too is if you go on my Facebook again, like I'm saying, I should have sent you the footage. I'm so sorry, but you'll see that a month before my show in Montreal, I asked Hulk, now that the match was signed and everything was signed, I started doing the publicity, selling the tickets in Quebec and everywhere in Montreal. I asked Hulk, would you mind doing an interview just to hype the thing up? I'm going to be talking in an interview, and I want you to come in right in the middle of my interview, and I want you to come in, and I want you to slap me. And I don't know if you could insert this if you can, but if you can, I'll send it to you, and you'll be able to insert this. This is awesome. It lasts 20 seconds, but you'll see when I beat him, you'll see the slaps and everything. So he slaps me first in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm going to do a tape. I'm doing an interview, and he comes in and he slaps me on the side of the head. I swear to God, he didn't want to miss. Anyway, so he wanted it to look good, but it felt good. So he slapped me good, and then he told, go back to Canada and this and blah blah blah, just to cut a promo he did, and then about 12 hours before the fight in Montreal, I organized 2 limousines to come and pick him up at the airport. Mm-hmm. So when he got off that day, I had all the media, all the big TV stations. They're all there waiting for Hulk Hogan to get off the plane, get out of the airport, and come out. But the catch was there was 2 limousines, one behind the other, and I was in the first one in his limousine. So when he opened the door, when they opened the door, he was talking to the TV guys. I'm going to tell you something tonight, and blah 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 blah. And when I get my pythons on, and blah blah. And then when the door opened, I came out of the limousine and I slapped the hell out of him. And I swear I was such on adrenaline. You'll see it on the tape. You'll see it on the tape. I broke his tooth. I really did, but it was adrenaline. I swear to God, it wasn't meant like that. It was just I was so nervous, and it was impossible that Jacques Rougeau wrestled Hulk Hogan. I was like, Hulk Hogan is such an iconic, is such a huge name. Jacques Rougeau is a jabroni compared to Hulk Hogan. Even in my hometown, I was a hero, all that, but I'm not in the same category as Hulk Hogan, not at all. So I was so nervous, all this put together and stuff that I wanted to live up to at least. Try to make honor of the family name, and then to have a good show. And so anyway, so I got up and I slapped the hell out of him. So when he got in the I slapped him and I jumped into my limousine, the next one, and I took off. And then about 2 minutes later, I'm in the limousine and I get a call in the limousine from one to the other, one limousine to the other. And the guy says, it's for you. So I pick up the phone and I say, yeah. He said, you broke my fucking tooth. That's what he told me. And I said, what? He said, you broke my tooth. And I went like this, and I said, I'm so sorry. He said, sorry, my ass. And then he hung up. And then so then the day went by, and then I got into the dressing, and I was so freaking nervous when I got to the Molson Center. And that was the name they had before the Bell Center. It was called the Molson Center. So I get to the Molson Center, and I'm in the dressing room, and there are the guys, all that I booked there. You're talking about Flair, Mongo McNichol with Deborah McNichol. You had the Harlem Heat. You had Dave Malenko. You had the other guy too, the Mexican guy there that was Eddie Guerrero. Yeah. I booked all the talent. It was amazing, and it was all me putting the show. So they're all there in the dressing room, and I come in, and Hulk's already sitting there, and Hulk stands up in front of everybody out of nowhere when I come in, and he says real loud, he says, what are we doing, boss? What are we doing tonight? So I started laughing. That was that was very funny. Very funny. And so he's looking at me very seriously. He says, I'm not kidding. He says, what are we doing, boss? He says, how are you beating me tonight? That was the first time I knew that he wanted me to go over. And it was like 1 hour and a half before the show. And I'm looking at him, and when he said that I was going to go over, I even laughed harder. I said, what a river, that's very funny, Hulk. That's what I told him. I said, you're very funny, Hulk. Very, very funny. I didn't expect that all to get over, And then he says, I'm serious, brother. He says, and all the boys are like, you could hear a pin drop. And all the boys are looking to see, what's going on here. Hulk is NWO right now. He's on top of his career. He's on TBS, Eric Bischoff, the whole thing, NWO. And he's asking me how I want to pin him. you know, what are we doing? So I looked at him, and after I saw he was serious, I just looked back at him and said, well, what do you want to do? You know, I still couldn't believe it. And then he said, well, I said, okay. I said, if that's the case, I said, why don't you beat me up the whole match? And at the end, I'll just small package you, you know, like, you know, and he says, okay, let's do that. So everybody like kind of thought it was a rib, you know, a joke and stuff. And we got into the show. And here's something that was amazing about that match, Jack. I was so starstruck to work with Hulk. So my idea was, listen, Hulk, I know I'm in my hometown here. I'm a baby face and you're a heel, but I'm going to go out first, you know, just because you need to come out last. You know, that's the way it is. And then so when they introduced me to come to the ring with my Quebec flag and my Canadian flag, 99% of the people were booing me in my hometown. I've been in the business 30-some years. I call all the shots. I'm pretty smart in the business, but I messed up on that one big time. He was such a people from Toronto, from Burlington, from Plattsburgh, Vermont. They came from everywhere to see that match, and none of my fans were there. It seemed like it. And 99% of the people were booing me. There was one person that was cheering for me. She was autistic. She was by the ring, you know, and she was one of my neighbors, and she was a little autistic girl. And she was going like, go on, go on, go. Yeah. She was the only one who was cheering for me. And if you go see it, you can go see that on YouTube. Jacques Rougeau versus Hulk Hogan. You see the whole match. So anyway, all this to say that the greatest thing about that match, and it was a stiff match, because I don't know if Hulk was a little pissed because of the slap, you know, that he got at the airport or whatever, but he was snug. And I don't know if he realized also, because when he came out with his NWO thing and the people went nuts, the whole roof was going to take off, I think he regretted doing the job. I had this impression, like if he made one mistake, him too, like he shouldn't have put me over. You know, that's what he was probably thinking when he came to the ring with that ovation he had. You know, so when he got into the ring, we had our match, and at the very and it's funny because as the match was going along, I was a babyface, so I wasn't cheating. But he was cheating the whole time, but he was bigger than me, you know, he was more impressive than me, but he was cheating, and I was fighting back as a babyface, like a good old Rougeau babyface when I was young. Yeah. And, you know, so I kept fighting back, and finally, at the end of the match, when I beat him, about 60% of the people were cheering for me.
All over Canada, go back to Quebec, because wait a minute! Yeah, oh, hey!
So I won about 60% of the people back over. But that's not the most exciting part. Of all that marked me the most today. That was the most notoriety I've ever had. After that, the media and everything, it did a lot of things for me. But the most important thing that people don't know, when everything was gone, when I came back to the dressing room after the match, there was none of the boys in the dressing room. Like, they were all gone before I got back to the dressing room. It's almost like they didn't want to see it. And then when I got into the dressing room, I was alone with Hulk. I was in front of the mirror, and I was a little bruised up a little bit and stuff. And he came in the bathroom, and he looked at me, and he says, "You okay, brother?" And I looked at him and said, "Yep." I wasn't okay, but I said, "Yep, I'm okay." Yeah. Like, everything's cool.
Yeah.
And then he left. So here's the spot. Here's the most exciting. You know, if there was a producer in Hollywood that was seeing this, they'd probably make a movie out of this. But I got to tell you something amazing. I'm the last one to leave the dressing room. I was showered. I took my time, just taking everything in now, like, you know, what just happened and everything. It was just a moment, an iconic moment for me. And I go, and we're parked in the building underneath the Molson Center where the hockey players park, you know, under the building, and they come out. And when the doors open, I'm the last one out. There's about 5,000 people. They have NWO and all that. They're screaming, "Hogan, Hogan." Yeah. So I'm the door. So the door opens, and I'm with my car. I got my wife beside me. So I start pushing. But the people, they didn't want to move. So I start with my car, pushing them back a little bit, like maybe half a mile an hour, just moving ahead. And then suddenly the door shut behind me, the garage. And I felt like there was a mob of people that hated me, that wanted to kill me. You know, and really, I felt like they wanted to kill me. They were so upset that I beat them. You know, they were NWO. It was incredible. And out of nowhere, it's so funny because I looked at my wife, and you know how you act on sometimes in life, you just act on something and you don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
I'm that type of guy. And I told my wife, I said, lock the door behind me. And she didn't have time to answer. And I pushed my door. I stopped my car, put it in park. I stopped my door, and I get out of my car, and I got out of my car, and I shut the door. Everybody's around me, and I reached real fast like that, like I'm going to hit somebody, and I grabbed the pen, and I grabbed the piece of paper. And then I gave it back. And all around me, for the 10 people around me, they stopped. They were like stunned. And next thing you know, another paper showed up. I took the paper. And I swear to God, 30 seconds later, the 5,000 people were screaming, Rougeau, Rougeau, Rougeau.
That is incredible. That's an incredible story. That must have felt amazing.
You know what? I'll never forget. If I bring something up in heaven or in hell, wherever I go, I'm going to bring that moment. Because, you know, it was a moment that you couldn't script it. You know, it's like I could have got punched. I could have got hit. I could have got beat up. I could have got... But instead, I turned myself into a hero, like, you know, in front of those 2, 3, 4, 5,000 people that were there.
What an incredible moment. And it brings me to the many incredible moments that have happened in Canada for pro wrestling. And of course, as we're recording this, Elimination Chamber is this weekend, and it's in Montreal. When this airs, it'll have already happened, but we don't know the results or anything yet. Tell me a little bit about wrestling in Montreal and any experiences you have.
Well, you know, there's so many things that I could think about in Montreal. Who can't stop to think? If you're talking worldwide, who can't stop to think about the screw job where Brett and Shawn Michaels? You know, that was something that's a dark time, but it was something that had to be done. Like, Brett was going for the competition, and he didn't want to drop the belt, so Vince had to think of something to do something. And I think he got Earl or Dave Ebner in there with the referee was involved in that, and where Shawn put the sharpshooter on Brett, and the referee said that Brett gave up there. But they had to do that because Brett was a hard man to do business with sometimes. You know, he didn't like as a matter of fact, we became world tag team champions, my brother Raymond, as the Rougeau brothers against the Hart Foundation, and that was never seen on TV, never. You know, but if you go on YouTube, you'll find it there. We beat them for the championship, but they only did that to give like we say, a candy to the people in Montreal, because once we won the belts that night, where Jimmy Hart was with the Hart Foundation at the time, he was manager for them, and then he went to hit us with the megaphone, and he lost the megaphone, and we hit the Brett or Anvil with the megaphone, and we pinned them, and we got the 1, 2, 3 in front of 21,000 people. Well, they went absolutely berserk because Montreal, the WWF, the Rougeau brothers have become the world tag team champions. To 3 days later, in a small little article in the paper, they said because it wasn't the right guy in the ring, they stripped the Rougeaus. And when they got the TV on the weekend, where everybody there was such a buzz in Quebec, we got to watch the wrestling on TV, and then you'd see the Harts come out with the belts and never even acknowledge that they lost the belts in Montreal. You know, that's And I heard they did that with the Rockers. I heard they did that with a couple of peoples in different places. But those are great moments in Montreal. I know this weekend that just passed by, we haven't seen it. We're Friday. It's a couple of days. Sami Zayn there is going for the title against Roman Reigns. That's the talk of the town right now. And, you know, Kevin Owens also is in there, implicated in there. But as you know, Kevin Owens, when he was 14 years old, he came to my school.
Oh, really?
14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. He was my student. I'm the one who taught him how to walk, to talk, and everything. Well, Kevin Owens, Kevin Owens is my student. He was 14 years old when his dad and mom brought him to my school and says, can you teach him how to wrestle? And they had to sign for him because he was only 14 years old. And it was funny because when I started teaching him and putting him in my shows, and all my shows that I was doing, it was locally, but there was like 2,000-3,000 people. And, you know, so he started with me. And then finally, after like 4 years, he left me because my business, you couldn't work for any other federation. It was exclusive for me. And, you know, a lot of guys hated me for that, but they didn't understand because they'd go work on a Friday night in front of 20 people in a church basement. And then they were my main event in front of 5,000 people the next night, and they were injured or something like that. And then he said, the reason why my show did so well in Quebec, the family shows that I was doing is because I was going door to door to companies to sell the tickets 20 by 20 to all the companies, and I'd sell out my arenas everywhere. But I promised them that the Mummy is going to be against Spider-Man at the end. And I promised him that the Midge is going to be there. I promised him that Kevin Owens is going to be there, which was Kevin Steen, his name at the time. And, you know, and I promised because he was so acrobatic. He was so good, Kevin. Kevin was the first one who brought the 450 into my school. Like, you know, the 450 off the top. He was amazing. And it was so funny because I used to do classes with him. And boy, was he was a pest. But at the same time, he was so lovable. Like, he'd come and, how can I say that? He'd be a butt kisser, you know, like he'd always be close to you, always wanted you to like him, he'd always do, but at the same time he was so good, and at the same time he was a pain in the butt because the class would move on with like 6, 7, 8 other kids, and he was always come up to me and would say like, well, when are we doing something else? Like, when are we doing, because he had already learned it, like, you know, he was a good quick learner. But I always told him, hey, we're a team here, my man. You know, we're a team. Maybe someday you'll have a hard time on something. And I want all the other guys to wait for you too. Like, you know, everybody grows in our company. Like, you know, together, we all grow together. So after 4 years wrestling exclusivity with me, he got tired of it and he left. And then he did really well for himself, as you could see. But I'm really the one who taught him how to walk, talk. And you know, in my school, what made the wrestlers really good is like, you know, there's an expression that says, before you run,
you got to walk.
Well, not at my school. I wasn't born walking. I was born crawling.
Okay.
So before you walk, you got to crawl. And what's crawling is learning how to protect your opponents. Learning if you're in the air with a move and something and you lose your balance, make sure that he falls straight and you fall bad. And everything like that. It's like, you know, you have to learn so many things that were basic in my wrestling school. So you have to crawl and then you have to walk and then you could run. So Kevin found it very hard because, you know, he had great abilities and he was like learning too fast compared to the other ones, you know. So that was one bad thing. But me and him, you know, up to the last day when he left, you know, we were the best of friends. And ever since then we broke. You know, when he left, he didn't leave in good terms with me and he left. And ever since then it's been downhill for me and him, you know. And but the bottom line is you can't take away talent from a kid. You know, the kid's got great talent. He's done so well for himself. He's doing so well. And Sami Zayn, he's a guy I don't even know. I've never met Sami Zayn. So it's like, I don't know. But now it's like, it's amazing. I was seeing, he was giving the puck down at the hockey game. They have him everywhere now. They're pushing the hell out of him in Quebec, Sami Zayn. In the last few days, you could see Sami Zayn everywhere. So good for him.
Well, also being seen everywhere, apparently, is you. I want to go ahead and throw to another video we have about the students and sponsors and things that you're working with for this next project.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that because without the sponsors, we can't make anything happen. But look at the talent. You'll see all the talent. They're all in that commercial. And my girlfriend, which is very rare.
So look at this production, by the way.
Mon nom est Jacques Rougeau.
And I'm Natalie.
Pour réaliser un projet comme Lutte-Académie et permettre aux jeunes de réaliser leurs rêves, ça prend des bons commanditaires.
To produce Wrestling Academy and make dreams come true, we need good sponsors.
Alors, on aimerait vous dire,
We all want to say,
thank you, merci.
Merci, thank you.
merci, thank you.
Merci, thank you.
Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you so much for supporting Lutte Academy 2023.
Thank you.
Merci. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mercy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wrestling Academy 2023 sponsors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He's going to go far.
Merci. Thank you.
Thank you.
Winner last year.
I'd just like to say thank you. Merci. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yawagoa.
Thank you.
Thank you. Merci.
Merci. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Merci.
Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you. Merci.
Merci.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. Merci.
Thank you, Myth.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Ooh, we got a lot of them.
Merci.
Winner last year, female.
Thank you very much, my friends. Merci.
Thank you. Merci.
Thank you.
Thanks, sponsorship brothers.
Merci nous suivre sur
So there's the
lutteacademie.ca
website.
et sur Facebook. Thank you for following us on wrestling-academie.ca and on Facebook.
You got a lot of sponsors there, which says just how good of a product you guys are putting out with this contest, because people don't like to sponsor just anything. So clearly, this is something people need to check out.
Well, you know what's fun about this is like this year was so much. There's so like last year. I'll tell you a secret. When you start a project like this, you know you don't expect to make money. And last year, my girlfriend and myself, we invested $15,000 of our own pockets. That's how much it cost us, because we have plane tickets, we have hotels, we have anyway the venue and the insurance, and on and on and on. And this year, as of now, we are passing the amount that we need for the whole $10,000 winners this year. We doubled the winner's price plus the plane tickets. We got $20,000 of plane tickets. It's all in already as sponsors, and now we may have a little extra for us to keep this year. You know, so it's like it's amazing. So I'm just so happy that I'm not going to spend any money, and we have this opportunity to be a nice trampoline for the Canadian wrestlers. To who knows, maybe you'll recognize one of these faces in one of the big leagues.
Very cool. Well, I'm excited to check it out. Before I let you go, I have one final question for you, and I want an honest answer here. We talked about how the Mountie stands up on his own as a character that I think everyone remembers, but also you've got the tag team and stuff you've done singles, not as the Mountie, but as Jacques Rougeau. Do you think you should be in the Hall of Fame?
Humbly saying, for 10 years, over 10
about it. Come on.
Over 10 years in the WWF and WWE, and four times holder of WWF Tag Team Champion and Intercontinental Champion, and everything I've accomplished, and just a Rougeau name should be there, even if it's only my father or my uncle or just a Rougeau name. The Quebecers, me and Carl, what a great time, a short time, a year and a half again, but what great innovations we had. The Mountie, the fabulous Rougeau brothers with Jimmy Hart. People, I go to Comic-Cons day in and day out around the country and even in Europe and everywhere, and people always say, how come you guys are not in Hall of Fame? Vince should step on his ego a little bit, because me and Vince had a falling out, but I honestly think that I should be in there. Honestly, I could look at the camera and say I should be in there, because everybody that I worked with for like the Harts for 4 years and everybody else that I work with, they're all in, so it takes, I always say, Jack, there's one thing, and one of my sayings that I always say, to create Batman, you need a good Joker. And I think that if Batman's in the Hall of Fame, I think the Joker should be in there too.
I 100% agree with you. I believe that you should be in the Hall of Fame. We can start a hashtag Mountie for Hall of Fame. And maybe it'll pick up. I don't know. We still don't know who's going in this year. Maybe it'll be this year, but I do think I believe you should be in the Hall of Fame. I'll put my foot down and say, I think you should be in there. Again, I say that the Mountie is, when you tell me to think of characters from the 90s, one of the first characters I think of. I also love you as the Quebecers and the tag team. And honestly, I was a huge Lance Storm fan, so I liked you in Team Canada.
Oh, yeah, I like Lance Storm too.
That's my deep cut there. I liked you in Team Canada as well. Jacques, thank you so much for taking the time, and thank you so much for chatting with me.
It was awesome. And, LA is in the house. And every time you talk about LA, California dreaming, baby.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully next time you make it out, we'll go grab a drink or something. I don't know, but
that'd be awesome. And you come to La Belle Province in Montreal, I'll have you over too for a good French barbecue.
Oh, I'd love that. Absolutely. Well, thank you again, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.